Welcome to episode 1 of Growing Pains. Growing Pains is a video platform where we interview some of the most successful sales leaders within the SaaS industry. Today's episode is with Andy Bailie. Andy's experience in the software industry stretches back almost 20 years. He's got so much experience when it comes to growing sales teams from scratch. He's been the first person on the ground in 2 organizations, which you're going to hear about in this episode. And he's also got a rugby background. So let's put Andy to the test with a workout with myself, Niall Simpson. I'm looking forward to getting into it. How you feeling?
Nervous. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be too difficult. You normally do what? So strength, cardio, any cardio?
10 minutes on a bag, 10 minutes or 15 minutes of kettlebells,
Yeah.
and then 10 minutes on a bike, but a hill climb. And then I'll chop that up with, lifting, so deadlifts, squats,
Yeah.
and then quite a lot of stretching as well. So I
That's
started
good.
yoga as well.
I feel like mobility is one of those things that as you get older, you have to do more of. Is that true?
It's very true. You spend all your life like contracting your muscles,
Yeah.
and then, there's a price.
Yeah.
Right? So you are aware of like lower back, knees,
Yeah.
a lot of stuff it needs more mobility. Do you stretch?
I do.
Yeah.
I have to.
Yeah.
When I wake up in the morning, if I don't stretch, the workout feels completely different, and I feel less ready to train if I don't go through mobility. Whereas back in the day when you're younger, you just go in,
Yeah.
you do your workout, and that's it.
Smash
You leave.
45 minutes and then,
Yeah, it's fine. But
yeah.
I suppose for me, what changed is I looked at mobility just as important as the rest of the stuff
Yeah.
that you do. It's part of my training now.
Yeah.
Same with sleep. I don't know what you're like when it comes to sleep and recovery, but
Like a baby.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
I think you have to prioritize these things instead of thinking, I need to work on them. Is prioritize them
Yeah.
over other things. So we'll start off with some box squats.
Yeah.
That's mainly for me because of my bad hip.
Right.
But you said you squat anyway, so
Yeah.
we'll do some box squats. Then we'll do some reverse lunges, bit more weight on them, and then we'll do, this is a bit of a full body workout. We'll
Yeah.
do some bench press, and then we'll do some bent over row.
Yeah.
And then we'll finish off with an AMRAP,
Lovely.
which is going to get a little bit spicy. So we'll do 12 cal assault bike, 15 dumbbell push press,
Yeah.
18 gorilla row, hand release push up. If you don't know what any of those are,
I know, I'm with you.
I'll
Yeah.
show you.
Thank you.
So one day we spoke. We know each other for a little bit, but I never really digged into your background of how you got into tech sales.
Yeah.
You didn't come out of uni and go straight into it, did you?
No, I didn't know. I was actually a journalist
Okay.
by training. So I had a mate. He said the skills that you've learned for journalism could be applied for sales.
Okay.
Right? So listening, working to a deadline, being able to manage lots of data, information, and most critically people. The reality is you don't need to know about how the technology works. You need to know what it does.
Yeah.
Or how it benefits people. You need to be able to work well under pressure, because quite often you'll be in a deadline situation. You need to be able to assimilate a lot of information, be able to not only assimilate but then prioritize what you do with that information, and then you also need to be able to understand how you best deploy that information. So who do you have the right conversations with at the right time, and bring it all together.
So what was your first role? Obviously, most people will be in an SDR position now.
Yeah,
Is that what it
same.
was like?
Yeah,
What,
SDR.
SDRs back then?
Yeah.
Okay.
They call them, we were called account executives,
Okay.
but it was the same thing. It was dialing for dollars.
What, so just loads and loads of calls?
Yeah, and we didn't actually have, we did have a system, but actually most of it was done, it was sort of paper-based. So a lot of it was just about making sure that you knew which accounts you were selling into. We used to have these things, they were called blue sheets, and they were blue sheets of paper.
Yeah.
And in a modern CRM system, all of the fields that you have actually came from these blue sheets.
Okay.
So you'd on a paper, it was like a paper basis. You'd be like, okay, so I know this person here, and they need to do that.
Yeah.
You had little red flags and like dumbbells all over it.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was good actually though. It was a process.
Did you feel like you naturally was just good at sales from the beginning?
I like people,
Yeah.
which really helps. I think right? The ability to be able to be interested and connect with what's important to people. So that's something I enjoy. And then I think a lot of it is also learning the process.
Yeah.
Right, and sticking to the process. I think, like most salespeople, I'm quite lazy, like in my bones,
Yeah.
I would rather take the route of least possible resistance.
Yeah.
So actually having the discipline that a process provides is really helpful. You know, it makes you make money.
Yeah. Because they got acquired by IBM, right?
No, that was after.
Oh, so you was in your first sales role, then you went to
Connexa.
Okay.
And they were a software company, and they did sort of talent software, so recruitment, retention, engagement, and yeah, again, a good company. The products were great, so people trusted them. It was the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
You know, that product set was in fashion, so people had budgets for it. So the idea of being able to understand how you could successfully shorten time to get your deals done, they were very disciplined around that.
Okay.
And also quite hard, which is culturally a feature you see a lot in American software companies. But that's okay because you're going to make money. So you accept that. They then went through an IPO, and then after that they got acquired by IBM. So from being a sort of small entrepreneurial culture, sort of pre-IPO, everyone sort of, you know, you feel like a family.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you get acquired by IBM, which at that point was, I mean, it was over 300,000 people globally.
Ridiculous, yeah.
So culturally, you know, we used to joke, it's like joining the Death Star, right? Because suddenly you're in this enormous machine.
Yeah.
And all of the things that, you know, you'd wake up in the morning before and you were like, great, I'm gonna go to, you know, so it's like a team sport, right? I'm going out with my pals. And then suddenly that's ripped away from you and you're suddenly in a much bigger team where you don't really know anyone, you don't have a common history, you don't have a shared, I guess, path. For some people that's great, you know, the corporate machine. But I think for a lot of people who are in sort of early stage SaaS or tech companies who then go through that growth phase, so from $0 revenue to $100 million of revenue, they really struggle with those really big organizations. When you get to a certain size, usually after an IPO, most of those people, the builders, they can't handle it. It's funny, I had breakfast this morning with a guy who used to be on one of my teams, who's just resigned from having spent 5 years at Seismic. You know, we were chatting about what he wanted to do and the company he's joining. You're never leaving the business, you're leaving your friends. They're still going to be your friends afterwards, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think quite often you shouldn't be overly emotionally invested in the company. You know that if you're being successful, then actually the net result is going to be you're going to be in a different culture anyway.
Yeah.
You kind of, you know, that means you've won, right?
Yeah.
And you have to accept that it's time to move on, or you hang around and learn.
Yeah.
Right?
Should we do some working sets now? Go some warm-ups.
I'm
serious. I'm serious.
Go on then.
So
we might have different. Yeah, go on. Yeah, show me.
how many was that?
8.
Feel all right?
Yeah.
5 or 10? And we'll call that the first real set.
Let's do 10.
10?
Yeah.
Okay.
Come on in.
From there to
Docusign. Yeah.
And at the time there was how many people in the UK?
So I joined and I was the 3rd UK European employee, and I think.
So did they have a presence in Europe, or was it just?
No. It was a Regis office, so like a WeWork with 2 other people in it, and then me. I think 120 people globally. Yeah. Again, I think, you know, if there's one thing that I've observed, always sell for a team or a company that's got a great product, right? It sounds, you know, obvious, but if you've got a great product, that does all the heavy lifting. As long as you're doing your job properly, as long as you're doing your little thing, that sort of teamwork mentality, if I do my bit,
the product will take
then actually the rest of it will take care of itself. So the Docusign, I thought they did really well. They only really, I mean, I left after sort of 4 and a bit years. And I don't think they really had any problems while I was there, sort of any product or scaling problems. And yeah, a fabulous company, you know, good people, and good people who knew when to leave. Yeah. That's the most important thing.
That's interesting.
Let me
do my set and then speak about that. Okay, so first working set, yeah?
Yeah.
8 reps.
Go on.
Go on.
That's it, you got it. Well done.
So yeah, you know, people know when to leave. What do you mean?
I think, you know, it's easy sometimes if you feel comfortable in a business, it can also be too comfortable. Yeah. Right. So you can. Then I found this actually with Seismic. I was there for 5 years. It was great, but I wasn't as enthusiastic as I was when it was a smaller, faster moving environment.
Yeah.
So the thing, going back to what I was saying earlier, the thing I like about the job is meeting people, understanding how their companies work, understanding if actually you can do something which would help them be either better, faster or cheaper.
Yeah.
If you're not in those meetings, then for me personally, that's just something which it's not that interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so you become like a manager who manages managers, and it's not a really fascinating job. You're too far away from
Got it.
where
Yeah.
the decisions are being made.
Makes sense. Nice. Easy under. So how different was being part of, you know, a small team like Docusign when you joined, compared to, you know, the IBM machine? So like, I imagine when, even though they had how many people in the US? Or globally?
Well, Docusign?
Yeah, Docusign.
Only 150 when I joined. Yeah,
Imagine they had processes in place.
Yeah,
So when you come over here, are those same processes rolled out, or do you have to wing it a little bit?
Yeah, a bit of both. So one thing that they did really well was they had the processes and the technology to be able to scale fast.
Yeah.
So they never had to pause and rethink what they were doing.
Yeah.
So they had the foresight to plan effectively, and they planned thinking about how do we become eventually they ended up being a $40 billion company.
Yeah, okay.
So that was always the mindset, and that came from the top. There was a guy there who was the founder, Tom Gonza, but he also brought in a CEO called Keith Crook, who was this energizing force of nature, who just thought big. You know, they always thought, you know, if you've got the best team, you're going to win.
Yeah, yeah.
So they were brilliant at being able to think about where the product would end up. And they said, we want it to be a verb, right? So instead of signing something, you DocuSign it.
Yeah.
So that was, being in that culture was really informative, and it's just nice to be there.
Yeah, it sounds it.
Yeah.
Cool, let me do my second set.
Right, so what we're doing now, 6 of these, right?
8 again. Okay, so you've gone from Docusign, then you moved to Seismic, yeah. When you was at Docusign, did you do any leadership?
Yeah. So we had a guy called Bob, who had been a US expat, had come over, was running a European team, but for family reasons he had to go back to Seattle. So I managed a team between that point and when they appointed a European GM.
Okay.
Just in that space, it was about 6 months. We tripled the size of the team. But the good news was, like, a lot of them are still there. So
still now.
Yeah, exactly. So like 10 years on, you think, okay, well, we hired the right people.
Yeah. You see a lot of people, companies, when they come to the UK, they'll just hire loads of people.
Yeah.
We'll speak about it later on, about what mistakes you could make doing that. But did they get it right, do you think?
I think they did, yeah. Both Docusign and Seismic were really good. I mean, you're a recruiter, you know this more than I do, right? If the one thing you can do well as a manager is hire a good team, that's most of the job. I mean, I was thinking about it. There's a guy I work with, I mean, a really good sales guy who, although he's not a sportsman, he was a competitive chess player, like a prodigy as a child. I mean, just the amount of attention that he brought to his deals. Yeah. And you thought, okay, this is all learned behaviour. Yeah, yeah. You know, like anything else, he's been doing this for so long that actually he's got a natural advantage, and he had the energy. So yeah, I think just being able to recruit people who understand what's required of them. Yeah, of course. And will be responsible, that's the biggest piece.
So the secret is to being a good salesperson is chess.
Chess and rugby.
What, football? No,
and football, yeah. And
football is good good salespeople. Oh.
There you go.
Strong. Nice work. Cool, so let's go on to the reverse lunges now then, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're first on the ground. Now what? Now what?
Well, that's it, it's focus. So understanding what had worked well for the US. So in Seismic's case, it was focusing on financial services.
Yeah.
So we got an office in a WeWork in Moorgate, and we targeted all of the asset managers and wealth managers in the city, and we went and met them. Right?
Okay.
So going back to the thing about energy, like I would get my boss over from Boston probably once every 2 months, and then he'd be with me for 3 days, and we'd have our first meeting at 8 a.m. for breakfast, and then we'd do 5 meetings. If you do that enough times, you understand that the reason that you've won all those deals in the States is because you've got something which is valuable. So all you've got to do is tweak, and in some cases you don't have to tweak it, you just have to make sure that, because it's a herd mentality, right? If I'm an asset manager in the States and I trust this technology, then there's no different set of operating circumstances for me in Europe, right? I'm still heavily regulated, I've still got compliance breathing down my neck. So actually, there's real safety in numbers. So as long as you can sort of get that messaging over, which is your peers and competitors are using this, why aren't you? As well as we know what we're doing, and the tech's great. That area of focus allows you to be, hyper successful.
So being first on the ground, do you think the sales approach that you take at that point there is different compared to the salespeople that are out in the States? Do you have to do things different? Do you follow the same methodology or?
Same methodology, yeah, exactly, yeah. I mean, obviously you need to tweak it a little bit. Because the buyers are different. Buyers are, like in the States, people don't mind picking up the phone, right? They quite like the idea of picking up the phone and just sort of, they like the idea of someone being, a entrepreneurial salesperson. But Europe is not so welcoming.
As in,
sales is a dirty word in Europe still.
People don't like to be sold.
Culturally, people look down their noses at salespeople. Not me, but you can see people sort of think there's a problem. So the idea of being able to approach people directly and say, I understand your business, I've got this great thing for you, you're never going to get past go. So you need to figure out what your channel is. And Europe and the UK certainly is much more referenced than networked. So it's being in the right rooms at the right times. So a lot of that is, conferences, seminars, making sure people understand that you are trusted by their peers in the States.
What about with resources then? So obviously you didn't have a sales engineer in the UK, you didn't have customer success. So how much did you rely on, or how much do you need to rely on those individuals out in the US? And do you, as a first person on the ground, do you call for those people to be hired, or is that up to you? Or?
Well, kind of, So you get involved in the planning for the year. So they figure out who you need to hire, when you need to hire them. I was really, really fortunate. They had 2 people from the States who were wanting to come over and live in London. The guy called Jeff Rousseau, who was a really great BDR, and he came over and actually set up the BDR team in London. The guy called Will Sung, who was an SE, and they were the 2 best in the business, but also in the industry. So they took a risk and came over and relocated. And I was the beneficiary, right? Because they were brilliant at their jobs. And as a team, I mean, I'm going to boast now. We were at bat 15 times. So we got down to the final 2 15 times in our first year. We won 14 of them. And that was, well, it was because we were focused and we were pretty tight towards the end. So it was good.
So you stepped into, you obviously had to take a leadership role at Seismic. You started building the team. So did you have a leadership title when you was at Docusign before you went over to Seismic?
But I was an IC. I was more of an interview.
So this is your first time you was a full...
Well, I've done leadership roles at IBM before. So it wasn't my first managerial role, but it was the first one I'd done for about 5 years. And it was interesting because I started off as an individual contributor, and then they started saying, okay, we need to recruit some people. So we brought in the first year, we recruited about 20 people. But customer success,
all commercial hires,
6 biz dev, 4 outside sales, so 4 AEs, and then the rest were project management, CS, and support folks. And a lot of it was, getting the right people, recruiting the right profiles. And then we decided to split up because most of what Seismic did was financial services. So that's like 80% of their revenue. So I went off down to lead the financial services team for Europe, and then they recruited a general manager over the top, and then another guy we promoted from within, who then became the sort of non-financial services manager. So in the end, the financial services team was, well, we did about 30 million in my last year there.
Nice.
Which was good, just for Europe. And then we had 22, 23 people on the team. So too many, actually.
What was that step into managing such a large team like? And because a lot of people, I see a lot of people who I've worked with before who've been the first on the ground and they've moved into a leadership role. So what advice would you have for people who are taking that same journey?
I think you have to learn how to be a lot more patient. I certainly did.
Yeah.
Like, I think when you're an individual contributor, you have much more control over how much you earn.
Yeah.
Right? You know, if assuming you've got the right company and the right product in the right market. And I think the thing I'd say is that when you then become a manager, a lot of what you earn is dependent on what other people do. And that's quite difficult, right? Because, you know, sometimes you think, well, you know, do it like this. And that's the one thing you can't do. Mm-hmm. I had a manager actually who was really good. He said that, you know, Kevin Keegan.
Yeah.
Right, so Kevin Keegan, apparently when he became manager at Newcastle, he'd be like, look, lads, this is what you do. Get the ball, and it just waltz through the defence and smash it in.
Apparently Glenn Hoddle had the same problem.
Yeah.
They were so good that they couldn't understand why other people can't do it.
And I think a lot of sales managers are like that. You know, they've said, well, you do it like this. And everyone's like, yeah, but show us how to do it. Don't just sort of say, well, it's this.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. It's the patience of understanding that you have to do a lot more coaching as opposed to just saying, we'll do it this way.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Did you say that?
Yeah.
You sure you're alright with these?
Yeah. It's funny. I wasn't being patronising when I talked about Kevin Keegan. It's just, you're about 10 years old, do you know what I mean? So,
I know what you mean. I'm a Liverpool fan, so I know him.
Oh yeah,
he's a legend.
Do, yeah. And also, I remember I was at a party a couple of years ago, and I was talking to, it was my wife's Christmas party. Yeah. And there was a woman there, and I was chatting to her, and I said, oh yeah, it sounds like Blondie, right? And she goes, who? And I was like, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Of course, you jump into bench, just bang these out.
Yeah.
Rugby players have always got big bench presses.
Yeah, you say that.
Is it not true?
I think rugby players will tell you they can always do big bench presses. There's a lot of slightly dodgy stats. I was telling you about this mate of mine who ended up playing for Harlequins. Yeah. And he was good, right? He was a professional. And got it. And a few years ago, at Harlequins they did a pre-season, and they had a legends game. Yeah. So he was playing, so he jumped out there and he was there doing his thing, and he was in the programme. Yeah. I'm sitting there in the stands with his kids and my kids, and I'm looking at this. I'm like, it says, and I won't say his name, but he knows who he is. Yeah. Right? And it said he's 6'2". He's never been 6'2". He's 5'10".
Well, a lot of athletes do that, don't they? They list at a different.
Yeah, I mean,
basketballers do it as well.
But if he was 6'2", he'd be a completely different human being. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think there's a lot of that in rugby. A lot of people saying, "Oh yeah, I can bench 300 kg." You're like, you can't, can you? Yeah, people, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I was asking you about Seismic before, but what would you say if you was a VP of sales in the US? Yeah. And a business was expanding into the UK, what would you look for in a first account executive on the ground?
So you need people who are going to be happy working autonomously. Yeah. Because more often than not, it can get quite lonely. Mm-hmm. Even with the best support structure, there's always going to be 5 or sometimes more hours behind you. You have to have people who can be trusted just to sort of go and do it, and obviously represent the company well, because being able to work on your own 5 hours from your manager, it requires you to be present, and to sort of take the initiative. So those are the types of behaviours and I guess characteristics they're looking for. And then for the people you're recruiting, so the people on the ground, I would say people who need to be quite resilient. They need to be, because it's not going to be easy, it never is to start off with. Mm-hmm. So you need to sort of be steady, and you need to be willing to take some knocks and understand that the hard work will pay off, excuse me, eventually. Yeah. But it can be a lonely place to start off with.
How do you measure, if you're interviewing them, how would you measure if they're able to work autonomously? Is there ways that you've been able to measure that before?
Usually it's references, you learn a lot about people in interviews. So quite often it's about, scenarios where they've done the same thing before, right? And that's what LinkedIn's great for as well, right? Being able to find out who can work autonomously.
Yeah, where would it be without LinkedIn?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
8 reps, you got that?
Yep.
Easy. How's that?
It's more difficult than I anticipated. I might go on 6 reps for that one next time round.
Fine.
Yeah, and I might try a wider grip.
I was going to say you're quite narrow.
Do you know what? That's partly because I thought it was, doesn't matter what I thought. I got it wrong.
I'm going to go a little bit. I'll put the 5. I'll do 6 as well.
All right.
If you give us a lift off.
Yeah, you got it.
3, 2, 1.
You got it. Your bar. Your bar. Go. You got it.
I've got it.
Yeah. Nice.
It's okay, that. You gonna try this?
Yeah, I'll give it a go. Let's see where we get to.
Count me in.
Right, 3, 2, 1. Right, I got it, my butt.
Nice. Good. Easy, go on. One more?
One more.
Come on, then. Come on, Adam. Come on. Nice. Lovely. So you spoke off camera about how you like to, and you mentioned it earlier,
Yeah.
about hiring salespeople who have got a sporting background.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, people who have played, well, you mentioned chess
Yes.
earlier.
Yeah.
But why do you think it's so important that they have another discipline?
It's that word, right? It's discipline. And it's being able to exercise the self-control, the discipline and the rigor to put yourself somewhere which is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right, so a lot of athletes, anyone who does anything which requires dedication, not necessarily, sport, but anyone who's sort of willing to put themselves into that tough spot will generally show up. That's what you want, right? You need to know how people operate when they're under pressure. It's about how you react when things aren't going your way.
Yeah.
And doing the hard yards, right?
Yeah.
It's the commitment. We had one guy who, he was phenomenal. So he was a cyclist, a track cyclist, and he was just underneath the GB team level, right? So as a student. So he'd gone off to university and he was doing, crazy amount of hours. I think he was doing 3 hours a day at the velodrome. But the only time he could then do that with his training schedule and his dietary requirements was between 9 and midnight.
Okay.
5 days a week.
Yeah.
So 3 hours, but thousands of miles a week, right, at a top level. So then for his studying, and because of the way that his training regime had an impact on his basically his lifestyle, it meant that he could then go and do studying. So they kept the library open for him afterwards. So between midnight and 3, he'd be in the library, right? So this is a kid, right? He's 19 years old, and he's smashing out thousands of miles a week in a velodrome, and then going to the library at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. So you think, okay, this guy doesn't have a problem, right? Putting himself in a tough spot. And it's funny, so we recruited him immediately. Baz, his name is. He's very good. And then he.
Shout out, Baz.
Yeah, well done, Baz. And then he quit doing the cycling and took up marathon running. Okay. But with the same level of dedication. Yeah. And he's doing 2:41. For a marathon now.
That's crazy.
He is ridiculously fast.
So he's just channeled all that energy from cycling into
He's amazing. So that, to me, that's the thing, is you get so much of that, from football, right? That people who can work well in a team, that's a really important quality, right?
Of course, yeah.
Right. 3.
6 again.
Yeah.
3,
down,
2, 1, lift.
Go.
Yeah, cheers.
You got it. 2 more. That's it. Strong. There you go.
Easy. Did it look easy?
Yeah. It sounded easy. Oh.
Okay. 5 again?
Yeah, 5.
Count me in.
3, 2, 1, go.
Let's go, Andy. Come on.
There you go.
1. 2. Nice. 3. 1. Yeah, you got 6 in you here. 5. You got one more. Go on, 6. Come on. Probably have 7 as well.
Oh, mate, that hurt.
When it comes to hiring, you've hired people at small, I guess you could call them maybe startups within a region. You've also hired people at large organisations.
Yeah.
What would you say the difference between hiring people at those stages?
Yeah.
is?
So I think with really big, particularly tech companies, it's very structured, and you need people who can understand and play by the rules.
Yeah.
And that's a completely different mindset to the people who you want to trust to go out and build something.
Yeah.
We were talking about growth earlier and the way that sort of culture changes. I think quite often you never see people who are really good in scale-ups in the really big organisations because they don't have the patience and they don't like rules. They like the idea that they can go and do what they need to do to get it done.
Yeah.
And that doesn't play well with big corporates.
Okay.
They need people who are much more obedient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess. Well, you do see people later on in their career that do like to go to the corporates because it's less risk.
Yeah.
And a little bit more. You know what you're going to get every day.
Yeah. It's a well-trodden path, right? You get to a point and you think, okay, it's time to do the garden. So you sort of like, you take it easy.
Okay.
Right.
Last set, 6. Yeah.
Yeah. Go.
3, 2, 1.
Got it. Go.
All right, so just before we go into the WOD at the end, I wanted to ask, because you mentioned this, we've spoken a couple of times, about how your success in your career, you put it a lot down to building long-lasting relationships with clients.
Yep.
So can you talk a bit more about that and any advice for anyone else who wants to replicate that within their careers?
Yeah, so I think for a lot of sales people, the natural inclination is to, once you've closed the deal, is to move on to the next one.
Yeah.
But most of the tech companies have now got platforms. So actually you can go back to the customer that trusts you and you have a decent relationship with and sell to them multiple times. So I'll give you an example. I've got BP as a client at the moment, and this is the 4th time, so 4th company that I've sold to them with, or a team has sold to them with.
That's great.
So, and it's not always the same people, but the fact is you've got that sort of muscle memory of knowing their language and their culture.
Yep.
So I did my first deal with BP in 2007 and understood a lot because of the process and the discovery, excuse me, and the qualification. Learned a lot about their business, which means that subsequently going back, I can actually talk to them about their business. I understand what it is that motivates them and how they work and how they think and their landscape, you know. So it's really important to have that. And I think it's also important, when you have those relationships with customers, not only can you go back and repeat them, but also, that's the one thing you can take with you as a salesperson, right? Is that it used to be called a Rolodex, but it's that sort of that network and that trust that you have.
Yeah, sure.
Because people network each other, and it's not just when you're getting a job, right? When you're selling to someone, buyers network each other.
Yeah.
They really do.
Speaker.
Yeah, exactly. So being able to understand that that's how they behave and that they will be checking up on you is really important.
Got it. Okay. Cool. Well, look, just before let me give you a bit of an overview. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 12 cal assault bike. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do 15 dumbbell push press. So 12, 15.
Right,
Yep. Then it's 18 gorilla row on here.
18?
18.
On each side?
So it'll be 9 on each side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we can do that if you want.
I'm okay.
And then it's 21 hand release push-ups, but you said you're going to just do normal push-ups.
I'll do normal push-ups, yeah.
Cool. We'll see how you get on with that.
Yeah. Is it easier with the hand release?
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You might program 21 push-ups, but a bit hard. So it's a 12 cal. So it's a 12-minute AMRAP. So Andy, You're the first to come on Growing Pains.
Yeah.
What I'm going to get every guest to do, who comes on, is to do a 30-second max cal ski as an end. I'm going to have a leaderboard of all the guests.
All right.
So this is your chance to go to the top of the leaderboard
Yeah.
for the time being. So 30 seconds, as hard as you can on the ski, and we'll see what calories
All
you
right.
get, yeah?
Thanks for having me. I've loved it.
Good luck. We're not finished yet.
All right.
You ready?
Count me in.
So 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, Sandy, come on. Come on. 20 seconds. Pull harder, come on, come on. Come on. Come on. Get us up to 1.6, get us up to 1.6. Come on. Come on. Pull. Keep going, keep going. Keep going. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nice work. Gotta come in. 12 cals. Happy with that?
Yeah.
How was that?
Tougher than I thought it was going to be.
Especially after what we just did.
Yeah, yeah.
12 cals, though, it's good, it's good. It's a good start. Like I said, you're at the top of the
Number one on the board. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, Andy. Thanks for coming on. Enjoy that?
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, I think you did really well there. I'm happy to have you on. First one. I knew you were going to do fine. I knew you were going to do fine. But no, really good conversation. I feel like anyone who's going to be the first person on the ground within an organisation or is working a small team, I think they can learn a lot from that.
Yeah.
So yeah, do you want to tell the viewers where they can find you online?
Yes, thank you. Well, thanks very much.
No worries.
I've absolutely loved it. I mean, it was difficult.
Yeah.
But I loved it. Yeah, so online, it's Andy Bailie on LinkedIn.
Cool. Well, everyone, thanks for joining. If you want to like, comment, subscribe on Growing Pains, there's going to be a lot more episodes. I'm looking forward to everyone seeing what we've got planned on Growing Pains. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.